What would you be thinking about for younger people who are either just entering the workforce or will in the years to come?
Realistically, the job that you have now is not going to be the same job that maybe you have in 10 years.
Too many people still think that like the CV is the holy grail, when actually some of the best opportunities is recruiters reaching out to you on LinkedIn.
What are some like top tips for all of these tools that are now going to maybe interact with my profile or my CV before it even gets to a person?
How do you showcase that you have AI fluency, for example? Show something that you have built, maybe a dashboard, or how you automated something.
Hello and welcome back to Trust Issues, the show where we read the label on AI together so you can decide for yourself what's worth your time, your money, and your trust. Today, we're talking about something almost all of us have lived through, and plenty of us are living through right now. The dreaded job hunt. To be honest, even before AI got involved, looking for a job was already one of the most demoralising and exhausting things you can do as an adult. Rejection emails left, right and centre, if you even hear back at all. Endless application questions where you try and say something unique about why you want to work for a company you know nothing about. Rewriting your CV for the 4th billionth time without knowing if another human will ever even see it, never mind read it. The uncomfortable truth is that increasingly, despite all of this painstaking work, humans may actually never see any of it. Companies are using AI to sift through applications because job seekers are using AI to send hundreds of them. Popular roles are getting hundreds and even thousands of applications, many fired off just minutes after the role has gone live. So we've ended up in this strange arms race where everyone is using the same tools, every application starts to sound the same, and both sides are more frustrated than ever. The big question this episode is asking is simple. In a market flooded with AI, how do you stand out and get noticed? And what does that mean for where work itself is going? My guests today have built TechTalk in answer to that question. TechTalk is a membership that gives you access to the things you need to get hired in this market and to get ahead once you're in. Coaching, CV and LinkedIn reviews, weekly sessions with recruiters and hiring managers, the lot. Over 6,000 members with people landing roles at the likes of Google, Salesforce and TikTok. And they've also built ResLink, a platform that lets you put a short video of yourself on top of your CV. Their pitch is that it brings the human back into hiring. I love that idea. But, as usual, I've got a few questions and I'll be putting them to my guests. If AI is screening CVs, whose biases got baked into that screen? And when we fix that by putting a face and a voice up front, what does the human on the other end of the video do with your accent, your age, your skin colour? After all, the blind CV existed for a reason. And the people who need a job the most are often the ones who don't have the resources to do so. So, who better to dig into this than two people who lived it before they built it? Roxanne grew up in South Africa, fought her way into UK tech, was hit by the 2023 layoffs and came back with offers from Salesforce and HubSpot. Joana came from Brazil, needing a visa sponsor just to get in the door, and became a marketing leader in fintech. Together, they founded TechTalk and now ResLink too, to make tech careers accessible to people the industry tends to overlook. Roxanne, Joana, welcome to Trust Issues.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. You guys have obviously built TechTalk. What's the problem that made you want to go all in on that?
Actually, when we started, I think we were solving a little bit of a different problem. Like when we started, the idea was to teach people about the non-coding side of tech, because I mean, both of us have built our careers in the tech industry. And we were noticing, like, whenever we spoke with people and we told them we work in tech, they were like, oh, cool. So what coding language do you work with? And we're like, we don't code. Like, you don't have to code to work in the tech industry, which was interesting to us. I mean, for people that work in tech, I think it's very obvious, but it didn't seem that obvious to other people. And yet tech is on the rise. Everybody wants to work in tech. And this was at the time where, you know, all of like the day in the lives working at Google and all these kind of things were really popping off. And so we're like, okay, clearly there's this gap, especially in the UK market. It's not as, I think in the US, people have more of like a know that you don't necessarily have to code, but like in the UK a couple years ago, not as much. So the idea was basically to teach people about all of the non-coding roles that exist in tech, and then how do you actually go about positioning yourself for those roles, which means how to build your CV, how to build your LinkedIn, how to network, all of these kind of things. And then it kind of blew up. Like we started on Instagram, essentially very content heavy, basically educating people on that. And with time, like even software engineers started reaching out to us and we're like, oh, this is really helpful. Like this is great. So now like the way essentially what we do is that we help people, whether it's coding or non-coding, land jobs in the tech industry, but then also grow their career in tech, especially considering how much the industry is changing within the last like 6 months to a year with AI. So yeah, that's kind of like the main problem that we're solving.
Awesome. Okay, so not just about people who don't know about tech moving into tech, but actually just like the world of tech is really challenging, moving fast. Like how do I find a job? What do I do?
Exactly.
How do I stand out? That kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about like the job market generally. So I feel like you guys are on the pulse. Like, tell me a little bit about the job market. You said obviously it's very demoralising searching for a job. I think that's the case regardless. But we're hearing a lot about layoffs, whether it's due to AI or not, and just generally that it's really tough. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the job market's changed. I think that's the main thing. And so that means that job seekers need to adapt with the market changing. And honestly, there's a couple of reasons why it's changed. I mean, if we think about it from, let's say, COVID, that's already one thing. So the fact that a lot more companies are open to remote work, I mean, we're seeing a little bit more of a trend now where they want more hybrid, but like before that wasn't as much of a concept. And so with that kind of shift, companies are realizing that you don't necessarily need to be hiring people like in the exact location where your office is. And it also means that we're seeing a lot more offshoring as well, because they're actually seeing like, actually we can have certain whole teams that don't even need to be in the country that is way cheaper and it can be as efficient. So I think companies are definitely rethinking the way that they work. And so that also impacts how they're hiring as well. But if we look at it more recently, it's definitely AI, essentially, that's changing a lot of things. One, also by how companies are thinking, because when they're hiring people, they essentially want employees that can use AI to increase their productivity. So that means that they can basically have like a team of 1 to 2 instead of having a team from 5 to 6. But also it's changing how job seekers are getting their jobs because there's so many AI tools that are out there. So it means that the barrier to basically apply has been lower than ever. And so as a result, recruiters, hiring teams, companies are receiving way more applications than they ever have. Like it's 5 to 8x the amount of applications that they're getting. Like at the moment, within a couple of days, you can have a recruiter receive hundreds to thousands of applications, which is just way too overwhelming. And recruiters can't really go through that many CVs to even start with. And so as a result, they're using AI and technology to basically kind of try to sift through the amount of CVs that they're getting. So it's kind of this AI talent war in between job seekers and companies, where job seekers are using AI to apply more efficiently, which means rebuilding their CV, or even means basically using AI tools to apply on their behalf. But then as a result, companies are using AI to try and sift through the number of CVs, and it's kind of become a bit of like a dehumanized process. And I think that's probably the biggest feedback that we get from people. It's like, we're applying, but we're not getting feedback, or we're applying and we're just getting automatically rejected. So there's just no more of like that human connection when it comes to applying. So we're seeing a big shift like in terms of how to actually get jobs. Like, hasn't changed in decades in how people were getting jobs, but now like we're just seeing this shift. And I think the pain that job seekers are feeling is that they don't know how to adapt, or they're just tired of like the constant silence from these companies essentially.
Yeah, I'm keen to dig into like what this kind of, I think you said race, or I don't
talent
know,
war,
talent
AI
war,
talent
arms
war.
race, whatever you want to call it. Like what's gonna, like where that ends up, right? Because the easier it gets to apply, the more people apply, then the more applications, the more you got to use tools to like sift through them, and you sort of just kind of end up on this vicious cycle. But I think before I do that, like, I know from my own perspective, when I have been applying to jobs previously, you hear from one person, oh, you got to do this with your CV because it's going to get read by this ATS in this certain way. So you got to make sure you have these things. But then, there's lots of different stages. Now you will almost have like tools that are happening before it even gets stored in the ATS. Like, talk me through what happens when I go to apply to a job, whether I use AI or not. What stages is my application going to be met by AI, and what kind of things what tools are they using on the recruitment side?
Yeah, so that changes a lot company to company. Like I've spoken to like some big companies that they are not using AI in some parts yet, but like there are some companies that are. So I think right now it's like very 50-50 because they're trying to like figure out what is the best way to leverage AI. But the first one is on the application. So like you said, basically a lot of people have this assumption that ATS is like, oh, it's this thing that is like rejecting you and you're not going to get past it. But it's basically a centralized system of putting all of the CVs together. So like the ATS is like, a lot of ATS, they don't have AI actually embedded into them right now. I think in the future, yes, they're going to. But right now, an ATS is basically like when you apply to a job through different job boards, because company posts in 10,000 different places, it goes to a centralized place. From that place, it helps then figure out, okay, what are the CVs I'm going to show to that recruiter? And that's where recruiters are struggling because, as Rox said, like they're applying for thousands of jobs at the same time, which means recruiters have thousands of CVs that they need to review. So realistically, they can't review all of the 1,000. So they're trying to think, okay, how can I surface the best 20%, 10% of those 1,000? Because like me as a hiring manager, when I was hiring, like about 80% of people applying were not a good fit. So like that's the biggest problem right now. And there are a lot of companies, AI companies, that are basically embedding into those ATS systems, and they're enabling companies to filter based on criteria. So you can put like, okay, I want someone that has 5 years of experience and is based in London. And if these traits are matched, then you can give them like a 70% score, 80% score. So then it's entering with this like scoring system where companies now can see, okay, this person, like anyone below 50% as a score, automatically reject because like we don't want to talk to them. We want to talk to people that meet at least 50% of my requirements, and the requirements change company by company. So that's the first one. So when you apply, if you get an automated rejection, a lot of the times is like AI or is a filter as well, like in the company side of like, okay, you are not based in London, so we can reject you. And you don't even need AI for that. Then from that point is like, okay, the screening phase. And there are a lot of companies now using AI interviews as the first step.
That's what I was going to ask
people,
about.
are not happy about that because you don't like talking to AI, right? Like answering questions to AIs. But companies are doing that to try to filter even more. Okay, how can we find even better people to put in front of the recruiters and actually put in front of people? So that's the other phase. And this is mainly like looking for keywords. This is looking for like the right answers in the sense of like having the skills and what is it that they're looking for as a company. And then if you pass that stage, usually you go to a person. So either you go to the recruiter or you go to the hiring manager, and then you go on in the process from there. But like companies are also using AI to try to source candidates, because that's a big thing right now is like a lot of companies are actually not posting jobs anymore. It's what we call like the hidden job market, because companies are using recruiters instead of getting them to like, okay, spend 1 hour going through 1,000 CVs where you don't know if these CVs are good or not. Spend that 1 hour on LinkedIn. Try to find like who is the ideal person that you want to be hiring and go after them. And this is what like companies are doing now. And most companies are going in that direction as opposed to like being receptive and reactive on waiting for people to apply. They're being more proactive. And this is like a complete shift. So like they're using AI to try to find the best people. So like how do you know who is good, who is not good? And that's where like you need to have an optimized profile, like all of the things that we say. And then they're also using it a bit later on in the interview stage itself to like assess like questions, or like using tools to in the interview to assess if like you was a good fit or not. Because there are a lot of things that like humans like don't notice during the interview.
So like if I'm interviewing, there's a tool that's kind of tracking my answers to pick up on some stuff that maybe and is that like the goal of that is like to standardize? Because I know that's a problem. Or is it?
I think to some extent, yes, but I think it's also going back to like that scoring system, because I think at the end of the day, like usually you try to put like 2-3 people at the last stage. And if you miss something throughout the process, you can kind of refer back to it and be like, okay, like these are the traits, like this is why like we would pick this person over that person. Because right now is very like based on like what you remember and like your notes that you take during the interview, and everything is like very manual.
Vibe.
So now I think they're like trying to automate a little bit of that as well. And I also think it's to standardize to some extent the process.
Yeah. With that knowledge, like what are some like top tips I can do to make sure that I'm like making myself best placed for all of these tools that are now going to maybe interact with my profile or my CV before it even gets to a person?
So I'd say for the application, so basically like the going inbound, so like letting the company receive your CV, the first thing is always going to be those keywords. So making sure that you have the right keywords and the right skills that specifically the job description have that are also reflected in your CV, so that essentially you end up in like that higher score. And so you're more likely of even having your CV shown to the recruiter to start with. So that's definitely one. But then the other part that Joanna mentioned is that a lot of companies are actively going out to look for talent. And like most of them, they're using LinkedIn. Like 95% of recruiters are using LinkedIn to actively go and source those candidates. And so optimizing your LinkedIn is a very big one. Like I think too many people still think that like the CV is the holy grail, when actually some of the best opportunities is recruiters reaching out to you on LinkedIn. And so honestly for LinkedIn, similarly, like it's all about keywords and basically optimization, because essentially what a recruiter is going to do is that they're going to go on LinkedIn Recruiter and they're going to say, okay, I need a data analyst with 6 years of experience that's worked with like SQL, and they're going to basically list all of the skills and kind of characteristics that they're looking for. And if your profile has those skills in there, then it's going to show up. So it's kind of like you know, like SEO, like if you go on Google and you're looking for like a specific recipe, it's always like the apple tart recipes that essentially are the highest rank that are going to show up. You kind of have to do the same thing with your LinkedIn profile. And so I think with that, like something that's really important in this job market is being very clear on what is the role that you're targeting. Because if you're not clear on what is the role that you're targeting, then your LinkedIn is going to be too general, your CV is going to be too general, and so you're not going to show up in the recruiter searches, but then also your CV isn't going to pass the ATS. And I think that's been more important than ever. Like before, you could be like a little bit you know, you could apply for a couple of roles and still get back those responses. But now, because the keywords is like such an important part of both the application and the LinkedIn optimization, like really thinking through like, okay, what are all the keywords? How do I make sure that I embed them in my LinkedIn and my CV is like the main way that you manage to get more interviews.
That's super interesting. Because now I'm thinking, okay, if I now am like, okay, first of all, I want to identify the types of roles that I want. And then I would think, okay, maybe I like take a bunch of job descriptions and like find what are the common things that they keep mentioning.
Yeah.
And then I find ways to like mention that in my LinkedIn. Yeah. And is there like parts of your LinkedIn, I'm just kind of curious now, that are more valuable or show up more in these kind of AI searches than others?
Yeah, so the headline is a big one. Okay. So essentially like most people will put like their role title at this company.
Yeah.
But that's a big one. A good thing is to add skills in there as well. So like the most important skills needed for that role, you could add that in there. Summary as well is important, because essentially like if you add those keywords throughout your summary, it's going to pick it up there as well. Like essentially when LinkedIn Recruiter works, like when they open a profile and they have like those specific skills that they're looking for, it will literally highlight it like it's a piece of paper, and like they highlight those keywords. So like a recruiter is basically almost looking like, where is there the most words that I'm looking for as part of my search highlighted on this profile? And that's essentially what LinkedIn is showing. So like a summary is a good way for you to add that. The descriptions under your work experience is another one, which a lot of people leave blank. And I'm like, no, that's like prime space for you to be putting those keywords in there. Role titles as well is something. So essentially, like a lot of the times, if I'm looking for a business analyst, they tend to look for somebody that had the role title business analyst before. So I think if you're career switching, or if you have like a role title that isn't very well known in the industry, like, you know, when you work for like a very big company and they just have this like really niche role title that's like only exists in that company, then it's better to change it to a bit more of like one that's industry known. So role titles is another one. And then skills is another one. It's like essentially the skill sections that you have, and like what are the actual skills that you have for the next role that you're looking for, because yeah, that's another one that's important.
I'm kind of curious about the bias side of things, right? Like I remember hearing about the example at Amazon, right, where they'd built this like screening tool they obviously get like gazillions of applications. But the tool had been trained on data which was like men, heavily dominated by men in tech roles, right? And so the tool then associated man with good at job and woman with not so good at job. So then it was picking up if someone was like women's lacrosse, then it was like and kind of like qualifying them out. I know Amazon have like changed that, and there's, you know, come a long way since then, but you know, we know that LLMs and AI is biased, right? Because it's trained on data that comes from humans, and humans are biased. So how do you think about managing or trying to deal with that bias within those kind of systems?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. And I think, as you said, it's based on the humans. Like, it's essentially what kind of data the humans are putting in that's essentially going to impact how any tool, whether it's AI, LLMs, or even just like your normal tool that is going to read the CVs or the resume. So, I mean, even like some of, for example, the AI features that some recruiters will use is that they'll put an example CV. So, you know, if a recruiter is doing outbound, they'll be like, this is a kind of ideal CV that we'd be looking for. And so I want you to surface like these types of profiles. And so if you have the typical profile of like a white man in tech, then it's very likely that that AI tool is going to surface similar profiles like that. So I think one is really making that known to whoever's using the tool or whoever's setting these parameters, and making sure that there is diversity in how they're thinking about things, and so that the data that they're inputting isn't one size fits all, is definitely one thing. But I would say it's still keywords at the end of the day. Like, if like keywords is still the main thing. Like, if you have, for example, a white tech bro and somebody who doesn't have the right keywords in their CV, but somebody who doesn't, it's still the profile with the keyword that's going to trump essentially the other one. So keywords are just important, making sure you have them in there. But then on the company side, I think it's actually really challenging them to be very thoughtful about what data they're putting in. And I think with that means that you need to have diversity within the company to start with, to make sure that those conversations are being had, because otherwise they're probably not even thinking about it to start with. And maybe there should even be a disclaimer from these tech companies being like, hey, if you're going to be putting in what your ideal profile looks like, think about putting like a couple of different diverse profiles. Like, I think that's maybe something that they could do so that people think before they kind of set their parameters.
So like LinkedIn or another AI kind of recruiting tool.
Yeah, anyone, like even like the applicant tracking systems as well. Because bias is a touchy topic. Like, there's bias in a lot of ways, and there has been bias up until now. Like, it's not like it's a new topic. Like, you know, there has been bias in hiring the way it's been done for like the past couple of decades. So I don't necessarily think it's like creating a new form of bias. It's just we have to be very conscious about how to kind of, you know, play those tools. Like, university is one of the things that causes a lot of bias, and it's not necessarily about gender or race, but like that's also something to do with bias. What kind of schools they went to, like what kind of classes. So there's a lot of different ways, and I don't think it's new, but I do think it's like because the system is becoming new, it's a good way to make sure that bias is part of the conversation, so that as these new systems are being set up, people are thinking about it proactively rather than reactively, in comparison to the job market so far, which has been more reactive when it comes to bias.
Yeah, so ideally we use it as an opportunity to like
exactly
try and do a bit better on the topic of bias. I'm curious, how are people then, like candidates, using AI in their applications, and like what are the like great things that people are doing, and then what are the less good things that are happening?
Oh, I feel like people are using AI so much right now, and not the good ways.
Okay.
One of the main things that I see people using it for is like tailoring their CV and like tailoring their cover letter, like optimizing their LinkedIn, which is great. Like, you should be using it for that. But I feel like people sometimes they want AI to fully replace their job or like what they need to be doing. And I think that works in careers as well, like in your day-to-day job. And people are starting to lose that sense of like critical thinking. Like, you need to use AI to improve and like make yourself more efficient, but not to replace completely what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, like, you're the only one that knows your information. You're the only one that knows your history, like your work experience. So you need to have that input. And whenever AI gives you something, you also need to sense check, because a lot of people are just like, okay, I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to put AI and like Claude. I've been seeing a lot of this recently, like to create 100 CVs. I'm going to feed the 100 jobs I want to apply for. It creates 100 CVs, it exports into a file, and then it applies for a job for me. I'm like, you're not even reading what's in there. Like, AI could be making a lot of stuff up that you don't even know. So you can use AI to like do it. And we always say like use AI to tailor your CV, your cover letter, because literally it takes 5 minutes for you to do it with AI. But you need to program it well first, and you need to sense check. And this is something that we have done. We actually built like some AI tools to help with like CV, cover letter inside our community, because we want people to use it, but we want at least to give like some sense check of like, okay, this is how it should be done. So then you can use it and you can basically have a better output from there. And the other one is mass applications, which is the one that is a bit of a sensitive topic. But there are so many companies coming out right now where like incentivizing mass applications, or like they are a platform that just came out that where you can apply for jobs, like 100 jobs, 1,000 jobs at the same time. And a lot of people are kind of falling in this trap, and even like using Claude now, because everyone is using Claude, like how to figure out a way to use Claude to mass apply. And again, because people don't want to have like put in the effort and put in the work, and companies can see that, because right now in this market, like Rox said at the beginning, there is a massive lack of intent because it's so easy to apply for a job. And a company knows that. And even if you think about like networking, job application, so if you're mass applying for thousands of jobs, I can guarantee you're not going to get a lot of interviews because you're not tailoring your CV to that specific job. If you are, it's very obvious that you use AI to do it because you didn't even sense check. And the other thing as well is that you don't even know what you're applying for. And that's the other thing, like I said at the beginning, as a hiring manager, about 80% of people that were applying for the job that I was hiring for were not a good fit. But like they were applying because people are applying for anything and everything right now. And with AI, you kind of lose those guardrails as well. Yeah. It just can go in 10,000 different directions. So definitely not mass application, but use AI in a way that can empower you. So for example, using it for CV, cover letter, even for interview. So now we're really incentivizing people to use Granola as well, which is like a AI meeting note-taking tool, where essentially you can put it behind your interview, and then it can like record your whole interview, like without people knowing that it's actually there, because it doesn't go in the meeting. And then after that, you can use it to ask like, what were the things that you did well? What were the things that you didn't do well? Because one of the biggest things in this market is that you don't get feedback. Recruiters ghost you, hiring managers ghost you. Even if you're interviewing and you're in the process, they don't reply to you. So you need to try to find ways to get that feedback for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I think doing something like that, and then asking like, what were the questions that I did well, why I didn't do well. So we created also like a prompt inside Granola to help with that we have inside our community. So it's just like using AI to better identify things that are going wrong in your application and help you with that. And networking is another big one. So like finding people to network with, AI is great for that, but not tailoring the messages to send to them. Because again, you need that level of personalization. You need to show intent. You need to go into the person's profile. You need to browse a little bit, like see what are their interests, and then embed that into the message that you're sending. Because if everyone is sending the same message, no one's going to reply. And it's funny because I hosted a workshop about like a month, 2 months ago, and everyone was putting the message that they were sending in a document. And then after I saw all of them like together, and I was like, can you guys see that they're literally exactly the same? They're like the same message that you guys are sending. So me as a person, if I'm receiving this, why would I reply to any of these? Or how do I pick which one to reply? Because they're identical. So it's also like that element of, again, I think it's all about like showing intent in this market, which is important.
Okay, that's so interesting. I mean, I've had that experience as a hiring manager, trying to use application questions to, get a little bit more detail, and then like just seeing them on the ATS, and they all started the same sentence. I was like, guys, come on.
Wonder where you got that one from.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's the point, right? Like if everyone's using the same tools, then things will all start to sound the same. But I think what you're saying is like, yes, use the tools, but I think this is just generally good AI use advice, is like, you use the tool to collaborate with you, but you're still putting your unique input and your unique spin on it. It's just that maybe it makes you more efficient or tidies things up a little bit, or rather than does all the work for you. This episode is brought to you by Unlikely AI. They make what seems impossible to achieve in AI possible. Explainable, accurate, consistent AI for regulated industries. If you're in banking, accounting, insurance, or anywhere compliance matters, that's a bigger deal than it sounds. Most AI can't deliver that. Check them out at unlikely.ai. So in that sea of sameness, like you've given a couple of tips there around like getting some feedback for using Granola and the recipes, which I think is super smart, and just being a bit more like present and focused in putting your sense of self in. But is there anything else that people can do to like stand out when CVs are all the same, or when application questions are all the same? What should people be doing?
I think the main thing would be to not rely on cold applications. basically not see that as like your main channel to be getting interviews. And so that means a lot of networking. So basically reaching out. I know people don't like to hear it, but honestly, like 80 to 90% of people in our community, the ones that manage to consistently get interviews, it's actually through networking. So either it's networking on LinkedIn. So like if you're applying to a certain company, reaching out to who you think the recruiter is for that role, the potential hiring manager, or even other peers. So, you know, if you're applying for a data analyst role, reach out to other data analysts in that company, build those relationships, and then essentially get closer to the hiring team. I think that's the main thing. Going to in-person events is also a big one, especially in-person events that are very specifically made for like that type of role. Because again, you kind of just want to be rubbing shoulders with people in roles and in companies that you're actually interested in. Because as Joana was saying, like more and more companies are just not even relying on the inbound anymore. So like they're relying on referrals, they're relying on going out looking for candidates. So because of that shift, like it actually does make a lot of sense to put your energy into networking, because when you manage to build those relationships, they can essentially put you in front of the recruiter and hiring manager straight. And then the other one is even in your applications or even with that networking, because as Joana just gave the example, a lot of people are figuring out that like, okay, cold applications are not working. Let's do networking, because it's a lot of people are speaking about it, but then they're starting to make the networking homogenous and like making the networking too much of the same. So then the next thing is like, okay, now how do you stand out in your networking? So personalization of your message is definitely one. Video resumes is something that we've seen work pretty well, where essentially you can send like a CV with a link and like a short video to recruiters and hiring managers. Some people are doing voice messages as well, which is something that I've been seeing. Just overall being creative, but I think video resumes is probably like the biggest one, or like the one that's on the rise that we're seeing work quite well. But yeah, relying less on the cold applications, I think, is like the main thing that you kind of need to do. Basically nudging people. It's kind of online nudging until
Bring
you
back
get the conversation.
Facebook poke. Remember that?
Yeah, pretty much though. Pretty much. It's like just nudging people until you kind of get into it's bringing back that human element. Like, you know, before it's like you could see a human by cold applying, but now you can't. So like, how do you bring the human element? Well, it's by connecting with other humans, essentially. So that's why the networking part works.
Yeah, we've seen so many people as well, like sending cakes, sending
What?
cupcakes.
Gotta stand out.
People are being creative.
Yeah.
That's great. I like fair play. I really respect that. And I also sometimes think if I was applying for jobs, I think I would just like I would like send a CV, but on the CV I would just like have like one page and it just being like just something totally different, you know? Like how else can you like in a sea when I know I've received like hundreds of CVs and they're all like they've used AI, so there's like a gazillion words squeezed in. It's like, oh my God. It's like, how can you be different? So I see that the cake sending is very impressive.
Portfolios is another one, actually. Yeah. Like sending out more portfolios so that you can show your work up front. So like if you're talking about doing something, like actually show me how you've done it. So you get to read a little bit more. And like as a reader or as a recruiter, you're more curious about it, because instead of this one project that you put in one bullet point with like 6 words, there's only so much that you can say. Whereas with the portfolio, you can build on it a little bit more. You can be more specific on like essentially your thought process. And so as a recruiter or hiring manager, I'm more curious to be like, oh, so you said you use this tool, you said you use AI. Can you talk to me a little bit more about how you do that? It's just creating more of that curiosity, which you just can't do when all of the CVs look the same.
Yeah, it's like I say as well, like we're in a show not tell job market, and like you need to show what you're able to do and not just say like, oh, I have the skill, or like I know how to use AI. So I think right now everyone needs to have a portfolio. Like doesn't matter if you work in marketing, sales, and customer support, because before only designers had portfolios or maybe some software engineers, but right now everyone needs one, because you need to be able to showcase your work, especially if you're like career switching, you're starting out. How do you showcase that you have AI fluency, for example? You just say like, oh, I use Claude a lot. Now, like, show something that you have built, maybe a dashboard, or how you automated something. And right now with AI, it's so easy for you to build like end-to-end products and projects. I had someone that we were in our community that basically is in product, and he is applying for like jobs and products, his career switching. And he was like, yeah, I run a lot and I had an app that was tracking my run, but it didn't have this feature that I wanted. So I went and I built a completely new app using Claude. And again, that person's not technical. And then they went and put that as a case study on their portfolio. So like, it's just something, you know, try to audit, like, what are some things that you can improve, like in your day-to-day or in your job, and then like start building things towards that and then show that, because like companies want to see it.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I do some advisory work, and I had a conversation with someone who was trying to switch jobs in the product space, and they were like, you know, I've done quite a lot with internal products around and like built them myself using AI. I was like, you have to find a way to showcase that, you know, like get it somewhere and think about how someone would receive that, and like how they would, you know, how do they see quickly that the value that you might then bring to the role they're hiring for. So I think, yeah, the portfolio thing is no longer just for designers or just for engineers. I think it's for everyone. I want to get a little bit into more the sort of career side of things and upskilling in AI and like the future of work stuff. Before I do though, you know, we've talked a lot about like the work to put in with kind of applications and the kind of environment that we find ourselves in with like just like AI making it so, well, it's democratizing it, but it's also meaning that there's just so much noise. It's very difficult to find any signal. But then the work to kind of be a signal is a lot. And, you know, like, I think I always really struggle with this kind of notion that, like, you know, you always hear this, like, women should apply for roles that they're only sort of 80% qualified for because that's what men do and blah, 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 blah. But then you're sort of faced with, like, I've got to put so much work into an application because I need to try and stand out. But then to do that for something where I don't fully fit the bill, like, how do I kind of measure, or how do I like assess the potential ROI on this when, you know, typically people are applying for jobs and they already have a full-time job, or they've got like other stuff going on. So it's a lot of work. Do you think about that? How do you like kind of advise people around, like, I guess, identifying the best chances and opportunities to kind of be noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the 80% rule, I mean, I agree with that. Like, I think if you can meet 70 to 80% of the requirements, you should be applying. And I think it's just that as women, we think that we need to meet every single criteria to kind of justify why we can do the role. And realistically, that's not even necessarily what hiring managers are looking for. Like, hiring managers, one of the things that they're also looking for is like, okay, when you join the company, will you enjoy working here? Will you be challenged? And so if you can do 100% of the role already, like, one of the things at least that I think about as a hiring manager is like, well, how long are you really going to stay? Or like, how long are you going to enjoy this until you tell me like I'm bored and so I already want to be promoted, or like I'm bored, I want to do something else, when I'm thinking about longevity. Like, I need you in this role for at least 1 to 2 years before you come knocking at my door telling me that like you're tired of doing this job. So I do think like that 20 to 30% actually is very important as a hiring manager. And I think job seekers don't think like that. They think I need to, especially women, they think I need to meet that 100%, when that's not necessarily how hiring managers think. So I think that's already one thing, like in terms of the mindset shift of actually 70 to 80% is what they are looking for. So I should go for it. But then in terms of like kind of sifting through the types of roles that you need to be applying for, I mean, I won't lie, the job market has become a little bit more narrow right now just because of how competitive it is and because of how many candidates there are out there. Like, companies just have a sea of applicants and a sea of choice. And so that means that they can be picky and they can say, well, this profile matches more directly with what we're looking for because this person has worked in a fintech company, for example, and they're a fintech, or this person does worked even more for a competitor, so they know the ins and outs of what our competitors are looking for or have in comparison to like the value that they can bring.
So thinking about people in their jobs now, so once they've got the job or they're, you know, have a role they really care about, what should they be doing to try and stay ahead in a world where AI is making things change so fast and perhaps making jobs and roles redundant, or what should we be doing to stay ahead?
Yeah, a lot of people right now, they're scared about AI taking their jobs. And honestly, I don't think AI is going to take your job per se. I think AI is going to make your job more efficient. So if we think about a marketing team, for example, before maybe they needed 5 people to write content, like 20 pieces of content a week. Now they're going to need 2 people, 3 people, because AI does make it much easier for you to produce content. So you don't need that amount of people anymore. But how can you make sure that you're part of those 3 people? And this is a lot of like the challenge and why people are becoming a little bit cautious because they think they're going to lose their jobs. But this is the opportunity you have to really go after it and try to figure out ways to make your job more efficient. Because companies at the end of the day, like no one knows what AI fluency really means. Like companies are figuring it out as well as people are figuring it out at the same time. But like founders, like investors, everyone is like AI, like you need to know how to use AI, but they don't know what is the right way of using AI. So you're in that phase where you're exploring it as much as the company is. So there's a lot of room for like trial and error, A/B testing, and try to figure out what are some ways you can make your job more efficient. And that kind of goes into not just using AI for like chatting, because a lot of people use just like Claude to like chat and try to come up with an answer, but how can you automate a lot of your job? And like even with TechTalk and Reslink, like probably in the last 2-3 months, we've automated a lot of our jobs. And like we probably saved about like 20 hours, 30 hours, like combined, both of us per week, of like how much we actually get AI to do things for us right now in a way that we still need to do the critical thinking, but AI facilitates that. So I think challenging it and using AI in ways that are going to make you more efficient and like figuring that out and testing it out, but also using critical thinking, because a lot of people are missing out on challenging AI in a way that also they think with AI. They want AI to do the job for them, but critical thinking, we already saw that, like it's going to be the top 1 skill that companies are going to be looking out for. That and other soft skills like adaptability, because companies are changing very, very quickly. So you need to showcase that you're adaptable. You need to showcase that you have critical thinking, that you're challenging AI at the same time that you're using it to make yourself more efficient. And you're showing those soft traits as well, because realistically, the job that you have now is not going to be the same job that maybe you have in 10 years. Everyone else career switching. There's even the stats like about people on average are going to change 5 to 7 times their careers in their lifetime. Like I already changed 4 times.
I was going to say, I'm almost done like there. 6 or 7.
Yeah, literally. So you need to always try to figure out like where is it that your skills sit and what are the things that you can transfer, because like figuring out your transferable skills and what are those traits that you have are going to be very beneficial now, but also in the future. So always like keeping up with the market, adapting with the market, not just thinking about like the now, but also thinking about like, okay, like what are the things that I want to be developing in the next years that are going to help me for my job now, but also in another job if I want to switch potentially. And a lot of those are in those soft traits and also in AI fluency. So I would say those are like the main 2 ones that I would say someone needs to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, makes total sense. I have a bit of like a controversial take on this, because I think people focus so much on like automation and saving time. And that is really beneficial. But I honestly think if you want to be different and stay ahead, is like, how can you use AI to make yourself better at your job, not just faster at your job, not just like doing things for you, but like, have the ability to have this like kind of feedback loop in terms of whether it's like interviewing skills, but you could apply that to anything, right? Like a sales call or, like working with, someone you manage, one of your one-to-ones or like anything like that. You can use it to like critique things that you're putting together, documents that you're putting together. Like, you now have this like collaborator who you don't feel embarrassed to constantly ask. And it's not, you're not kind of like pointing out your flaws like you might feel with a manager, right? Like where you don't want to be like, hey, can you critique this? Because you sort of like don't want to point out the fact that you've you have not done a good job on certain stuff. And so I really think like there is this opportunity to use it to actually just be really good, as well as like doing some of the automation. And then you end up in a position where like you're both using it and like, getting that kind of the advantages of that, but you're also better at what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Because they go together, right? Because the more you're able to automate some of the tasks that before like would take you a lot of time, the more time you have to be strategical about what are the things that you're actually doing. And this is one thing that like even we see with us, because essentially we're a team of 2 people, like 2.5 people. And in a company, when we talk to a lot of people in the similar situation as us, and they have a team of like 8 people, 10 people, 12 people. So it's like, how can you actually be smarter about how you're spending your time? And I think AI helps with that, but also helps you with having time to think. which is also good.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think about what my manager, like one of my managers used to tell me at my previous company, especially when I was talking about like promotions and basically like what I would need to do to grow in this company. And he would always tell me, he's like, Roxanne, you need to move from working in the business to working on the business. And I was like, at the beginning, I was like, what does that mean? I'm like, sounds great. But like, what does that actually mean? Yeah, but like, it's basically what Joana was saying. He was like, you're executing, which is great, and like you're very good at your job, and like you're able to basically do all of like the maintenance tasks, like the things that are needed for this position. But if you're able to work on the business, which is the strategic work, like essentially the critical work, like what is going to be like the step change, like what is the thing that's going to create us an extra 20% of revenue, or even like create us a brand new revenue stream, like that's the type of impact and achievement that's going to allow you to essentially get promoted or be seen by the GMs and executives at the level that you want to be seen. And that's essentially what AI can let you do, is that it can kind of take care of those like in the business like maintenance tasks, so that you can focus on more like the big picture, like what's the next big thing that I can do, and like how do I actually go about executing that.
Yeah, I think that's quite a big mindset shift, right? And something that often comes really with experience. So I've had this conversation before. I don't remember which episode it was in, but we spoke about how AI sort of it's allowing you to, what normally the process would be is like, I do good at my job and now I get to a point where I manage other people doing my stuff. Now it's like actually people at the earlier stages can outsource some of that stuff. So now they need to think like over and above, like what's the next step. And we're really seeing that, I guess, with the rise of like individual contributor roles now, like, you know, rather than the next step being management, because you actually can do some management of AI or agents or different tools. So actually the mindset shift is like, I need to be thinking about like how I can add value that isn't just the like boxes that I have to tick within my role, which I think is, you know, that's kind of a big, it's a big ask.
It's a big difference, like for entry level people especially, because the way that you're able to think on the business is when you've done the in the business things, because it's like, okay, I've done this, and like then you think about the next level. So if that part is being automated, like I do feel for entry level people, because especially if that's not like, if you're not naturally like a strategic thinker, you tend to become a strategic thinker through time and through experience. So it is tricky, but I mean, for anybody who's already an out of the box thinker or who's like creative, I think it's massive, because then it actually means that as a young person you can shine versus somebody who's just used to like executing a lot. So there's definitely like just a mindset shift in like how things are seeing and how employers are considering what a valuable employee is. And I think just the more that you're aware of that and the more you try to like position yourself as a valuable employee, then you know, you're okay.
You've absolutely teed up my next question perfectly. So thank you for that. Because I wanted to kind of like think a little bit about like the people that I guess the shift in AI impacts the most, right? And I think about graduates who typically do the in the business work to learn and kind of gain experience, whether that's just like by actually doing that work or also just like by osmosis and being around people. And then I also think about the kids at college and school and growing up, and like what's it going to look like for them when they enter the workforce. And I think there are companies who are thinking about people in that way, and they're asking those questions like, yes, we want to get better, you know, productivity gains using AI. Yes, like we can do more with less, but yes, we also are going to need people. And so we need to think, you know, about how we set people up for success as they kind of move through their career when the landscape has shifted and changed. Like, are you seeing companies, like how are you seeing, I guess, the difference in maybe companies thinking about this, and like what would you be thinking about for younger people who are either just entering the workforce or will in the years to come?
I think like experimentation would probably be the big thing. Like I think especially as an entry-level person, the mindset tends to be, I'm here to learn or I'm here to be taught, which in a lot of companies, you know, that's kind of like, for example, what a graduate program is for. It's like, yeah, we'll train you everything, we'll teach you everything. And then after a certain time, you'll be able to specialize, or you'll be able to have enough knowledge to kind of move to the next thing. Whereas I think actually now it's more like you kind of need to have like that experimental mindset. And I think as a manager or like as somebody in a company, like making sure you give them that room to experiment. I kind of think the way I think about it is like more and more companies are going to want individuals with entrepreneurial mindsets, essentially. Like, I think the booming or like the growth of entrepreneurship is booming anyways. And like you see a lot of people leaving their 9 to 5 to be entrepreneurs, because even now, I mean, Joana said, like, we're able to do so much with a team of 2.5. And like, we wouldn't have been able to do so much 5 to 6 years ago because of AI. But I do think that like employers, even if you're working for a startup, scale up, or big company, they will look for people with the entrepreneurial mindset, who's creative, who's willing to like try new things, who's willing to fail. And I think as long as managers give them that room at any level, then they'll be good to do that. But yeah, I think experimenting is basically the big thing, and just coming up with ideas. In a way, I think it's kind of exciting because it means that our roles are becoming more creative rather than so executional. Which I think is cool. Like, it means that you can actually, you know, use your brain to like try things rather than just continuously doing the same task over and over and over again. And like, that's what's considered good.
I have 2 kind of like slightly quick fiery questions to finish up on, so you guys can take one each. So the first one is, what is one thing you are like most excited about, and one thing that worries you the most with AI?
I think the thing that worries me the most is what we were talking about, like in this AI talent war, because I don't think this is going to be solved in the next years. Like, I don't see this being solved. Like, AI is going to stay here. People are going to keep using AI to, again, like apply for jobs and like make that process easier, and companies are going to use AI to filter it out. So I think in relation to the job market is going to keep being tough. And I think people are just going to have to figure out ways to stand out. Like right now, like Rox said, like video resume is one, portfolio is one. In 5 years, if everyone is doing that, well, it's another thing that's going to make you stand out. So I think in that sense, AI is making it very complicated in the hiring scheme. But I think also AI like brings a lot of opportunities, like we were talking about. Like right now, you can build so many things that you were not able to build before. Like if you want to create your own business, you have the means to do that. Like you have a lot of tools. You don't need a big investment. You can just, again, like leverage AI to get something set up. You don't need to be technical. And that has made it much easier for people to look for like the life that they want, like in terms of like the freedom that they want. Maybe they wanted to leave corporate. Maybe they want to like look for a completely different job. And even thinking of people that are like career switching, because I think this is something that is going to grow a lot. Also with AI, people can like build so much and like build so many projects and showcase their work, where like 5 years ago you had to work part-time or you had to like volunteer somewhere to show that experience. Right now it's just so easy to do that. So I think like AI is enabling people to unlock a bit more of like their creativity, unlock a bit more of what they're able to achieve with the time that they have. And I think like, yeah, the sky's the limit. Like you can literally build anything, like you can do anything. And I think people are feeling empowered by that as well. So that would be a good thing.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think about that, like that arms race or that kind of thing, like where's that going to end up, right? Like if you get just more people doing the same, using the same tools, doing the mass applications, and more tools having to sift through those, like, I don't know, well, surely it feels like it would reach a sort of tipping point at some point, but who knows what that's going to look like. And then finally, you guys must have seen some interesting things around job applications. What's the most like ludicrous thing you've seen in a job application?
In a good way or in a bad way?
Your choice.
The most ludicrous thing I've seen in a job application. I mean, I have a nice story. I don't know if it's that ludicrous, but it's basically somebody who got rejected. It's one of our community members, actually. So he was looking for like a sustainability consultant position. And he originally got rejected by this company. I think it was like an automated rejection. And then he reached out to like either the recruiter or hiring manager, basically saying like, hey, got rejected, but you know, here's why I think I'd be a good fit, or like why I like your company so much, etc. And then he ended up getting the interview off the back of that, which I thought was great. He got through the first round, then he moved to the second round. He actually got rejected at the second round of the interview. And then he sent an email back to the recruiter saying like, yeah, you know, appreciate the feedback.
But you're wrong.
But yeah, pretty much, I guess in the professional way, like saying like, you know, this was my experience and like, you know, this is what I think, and like basically saying what he really enjoyed about the company. He ended up getting back into the interview process. Did his last round and ended up getting an offer, which he actually accepted. So I think that's probably one of like the most like resilient like candidates that I've heard a story from, because I mean we do talk about like, oh yeah, like when you get rejected, like, you know, don't take it to heart, like there's 1,001 reasons why it could happen, and I think it's always good to send a follow-up email, but we're also very realistic about like the percent chance of that actually turning into anything afterwards is still slim. So the fact that he actually he got rejected twice in that one process, still managed ended up getting the offer and ended up actually working there, I think is crazy.
Yeah.
I
thought you were going to say he then turned it down when he got off.
Yeah, imagine.
Like, oh my God.
Imagine like you're putting them through all that sweat and tears just to like reject it.
Bye.
It's wild.
Yeah. So walk me through a little bit how it actually works for a member. Like if I sign up, what do I get? How does it work? How does that help me get a job?
Yeah, so we primarily are a community. So in our community, basically, it's like a freemium model. So like you can sign up. We have like some webinars that are free. We host webinars every Tuesday. They are free for people to attend. We also have our social accounts where we have a lot of free content as well. And then from there, people that do want to join the community, they can. And you have 2 hubs as part of the community. So we have the Job Seekers Hub and the Career Growth Hub. So if you're currently looking for a job, whether you're employed or unemployed, you can go into the Job Seekers Hub. So we have a membership for that. And then in there, you're going to be able to go to all of our events. We have a lot of in-person events in London, at least 3 events a month, usually. And also a lot of virtual events, which at least like 5 a week.
Cool. And is this mainly for, you know, like what's the demographic? Is this like entry all the way up to senior? Is it kind of middle? Like what's the
I would say our audience is like 25 to 45. Mm-hmm. Like we work with a lot of career switchers. Okay. So like a lot of people switching from like different
I needed you guys.
Yeah. So a lot of people switching, like everyone now wants to go to tech because tech is booming, especially with AI now. A lot of companies coming up every single day, which is crazy. A lot of companies raising as well. So people see the potential and like the freedom as well in working in tech, because you can work remote. So like people from different industries, but also people that are like graduates, so like starting out, or people that are more senior in their careers and are going to the job market and are struggling. So like we've worked with everything from graduates all the way to like head of VP as well. So we have like a little bit of everything and all over the world, really. Like we started in the UK, but now we have a lot of people in the US, a lot of people in Canada, Australia, all over Europe, even people in Brazil. So we're becoming pretty international because everyone's struggling the same. This job market is tough for everyone. Yeah. And I feel like people are just, connecting on that.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's been absolutely insane, and I've got a gazillion more questions, but we can maybe do it again sometime.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys. So that was Roxanne and Joana, and that was Tech Talk. There's one thing that really stuck with me. Roxanne said 80 to 90% of the people in their community who actually land interviews get there through networking, not cold applications. Networking. I really didn't expect it to be that high, and it reframed the whole thing for me, because the reason so many of us mass apply is that it feels like a numbers game. You hear about people firing off 400, 500 applications before they get a single interview, and nobody has the care and attention to do that well. But the people getting through aren't really playing that game. They're reaching out. They're building a profile that makes recruiters come to them. And there are different ways to do that. A room full of strangers is hard if you don't love small talk. But somehow it's a bit less awkward to be intentional on LinkedIn. The catch is, it's still work. You still have to find the people, write the messages, and sit with the rejection. So it's not a shortcut, it's just maybe a better aimed version of the effort. There's another bit I keep coming back to. I asked where the arms race ends. Everyone's using AI to apply. So companies use AI to screen. So we all need new ways to stand out. And round it goes. And the honest answer was that it doesn't really end. But here's where I think it might go. I think AI is going to change work so much that the whole application process is already half broken. Job descriptions were never that good. Role titles are starting to mean less and less. We might end up hiring the person and not the role, which would be a massive shift. And if I'm honest, it could bake in even more bias, because now maybe I'm hiring whoever I think is great, and that's about as subjective as it gets. So did everything resolve? Not quite. There was a lot of incredibly useful tips in there. Apply to roles you're 70 or 80% right for. Know which bits you actually have to hit and which ones you got some flex on. But underneath it all, the message is still, make more effort. And that's fine when it pays off. But when you're not getting any hits, that's just as demoralising. If a friend messaged me tomorrow, drowning in rejections, here's what I'd actually say. Work out the specific jobs you want first. Then build up your LinkedIn so the recruiters come to you, and let AI help you figure out what to put where. And the final thing that conversation left me with is this idea that it's a mindset shift. The job isn't just to do the work anymore. It's to think about how you add value and to start doing that far earlier than we used to. And to use AI to get better at your job, not just to get it done for you. That's the call, and it's yours to make. I'll see you on the next one.